The thing that I think about all the time these days is what can I do with marketing that's really weird? Crazy creative things that stretch the bounds of what you would think you could do. And so that's what I'm looking at. It's just like, how can I bring even more of my personal brand through and get very creative and break a bunch of rules and see what happens?
This is Personal Brand Blueprint with me, your host, Dave Polikoff, where I sit down with proven experts who've built successful personal brands to break down how they did it, so you know the exact blueprint on how to build a personal brand that attracts attention, builds trust, and converts your dream clients online. We get super specific. I'm talking real-time feedback on what social channels to be on, what marketing strategies to implement, and what content is capturing and converting the most attention on social. How do we do this? Because Personal Brand Blueprint is powered by ZenPost, your content partner for research-driven strategy and done-for-you video that helps you be seen, be trusted, and win more business. Whether you need more guidance on how to create client-attracting content yourself, or you need a professional creative team to create and publish your content for you, ZenPost is your strategic content partner. If you're ready to increase your visibility, followers, and leads through video content, then head over to zenpost.com today to learn more. Now, let's get into the show. Copywriting, a huge topic when it comes to marketing, when it comes to personal branding, when it comes to persuading your audience to take the next step into your business web. And copywriting can be a little difficult for most of us because you don't really get taught it in school. You don't really learn it until either you take that course or you work with someone like our guest today. Today we have Rachel Allen, owner of Bolt from the Blue Copywriting. So Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I really want to start with the idea of the concept of copywriting and how it's different than I think what most, I would say, solopreneurs, personal brands are used to doing. I think they know how to maybe write an email, know how to write a text post for their LinkedIn account. But that type of language that they're using there and like true persuasive copywriting are two different strategies. So can you kind of tee up the difference for us in terms of when we think about writing, what's the difference between what we are natural at and what copywriting actually is?
Yeah. Well, I'll say one thing, which is I do think that they need to be all part of the same conversation. But the difference between copywriting and, say, content writing is that copywriting, as you said, the main point is to persuade. You just want to make it as easy as possible for someone to say yes. So the way I often frame it to my clients is the entire point of copywriting is asking the question of how do they need to feel and what do they need to know to say yes to your offer?
Easy enough, right?
Yeah.
But that's the intricacies within that is where we all get lost. So,
Right.
that's obviously a certain type of skill, a certain type of mindset and approach that we all don't, like I said, come out of the box with. So, how did you get started in copywriting, and how did you learn all this?
I actually fell into it completely backwards. I trained to be a journalist. I did the whole thing, interned at NPR, all the grades, blah, blah, and then graduated into 2008, which no one was hiring. And so I sent out 200 resumes and I got 0 responses. And the only job I could get was unpacking boxes at an Old Navy warehouse on the 5 a.m. shift. And I was like, well, I don't exactly want to do this for the rest of my life. So I decided in my 22-year-old brain to move to Hong Kong, which was as far away from Tennessee as I could possibly imagine. And I thought, well, they must have jobs on the other side of the world, which of course they do, but you need this piece of paper called a work visa, which I did not get before I left. So I was in Hong Kong, I had to make rent, and I'm Googling like how to make money online because, it's 2008 and that's a little bit less silly then. But I found this job called copywriting and I was like, okay, there's no way. Like this has to be a scam. There's no way somebody's going to pay me to do this. But I gave it a go and they did pay me to do it. And I fell completely in love with it and then ended up learning on the fly. Actually, as people hired me, I would look at different examples of whatever they had hired me for and try to figure out how to replicate that.
Yeah, I love that kind of trial by fire, start before you're ready type of thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So during that time when you're learning, what were some of the first lessons that you were learning that like maybe some of the mistakes you were making when it came to copywriting that you
Mm.
quickly learned, okay, here's kind of the priority one, two, three when it comes to copywriting.
Yeah. I think the first one, and I see a lot of people struggle with this, is length. Copy needs to be tight, it needs to be short, and it needs to be persuasive within the very first sentence. Because I had been trained, of course, to like lead into it and have a nice build up, and then you have your thesis statement, and it's like, nope, out the gate. Tell me what you want and make me want it. First sentence has to happen. So length, and then I think just focus, because it's so easy to want to write for like the beauty of it or just because you like the way it sounds or you like the way your voice sounds, but it's like, nope, doesn't matter. Who cares? I don't care what you like. I care what the audience likes.
Yeah, I like that. There's what's the expression? Clear over cute, I think.
Yes.
So I think we a lot of times yeah get a little poetic with our language, but that doesn't
Yeah.
exactly convert. So you have a saying, everyone is spam until they prove otherwise. Talk me through what
Mm-hmm.
you mean by that.
So I've actually just been looking at the numbers again, and depending on what study you read, people are exposed to upwards of 100,000 to 400,000 words a day. So we are primed to tune people out, especially because many of those words boil down to like, hey, buy this thing, right? So we have this very high threshold for engagement with anybody new. And I think that's really hard to keep in mind when you're coming at it from the copywriter's perspective because it's like, but my thing matters. I know why it's cool. You should listen to me. I'm a good person. But of course, from their perspective, it's like, nope, that's the 400,001st word I've heard today. You would like really need to make it count. And so that's what I tell people is like, you can't come into this with this sense of entitlement of like, well, I've said something, so someone should listen to me. Absolutely not. No one owes you their attention. You are spam until you tell them, hey, this is what is valuable to you, and I see you, and I have no expectation of you actually returning that attention because we're all busy.
Yeah, I mean, it's largely, I mean, if we were going to correlate this to obviously personal branding and
Yeah.
trying to capture attention, largely through content, the big kind of headline word for it is typically hook. And it's,
Yes.
you're creating your hook, whether it's in a video or a text post or an email subject line. What are some strategies that we can be thinking about when it comes to capturing that attention where it doesn't come off 2005 clickbait headliney?
You won't believe what doctors, yeah,
Right.
nothing
Number
like
three
that.
will blow your mind. Right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the first thing, it sounds so simple, but avoid that because people are still teaching it because I mean, it works on, I don't know, the 0.2% of the population who hasn't seen that yet. But what I tell people is that you buy in with novelty and you stay in with empathy. So our brains are actually wired to look for things that are different. We want to solve mysteries. And that can be something as small as like a weird combination of words or a question or a statement that people wouldn't have thought about. So that's the novelty part. And once you have that, that actually gets people's brains like paying attention to you and wanting to listen to you before they consciously make that decision, which is just this wild neuroscience magic that you can do. But of course, we all know the disappointing feeling of getting on the other side of one of those mysteries, and then it's like, oh, really? That was just some clickbait? Like, that was just something boring? So you can't just be like, you can't make a mystery without following it up with empathy and giving them something that is like, look, I see you, I get you. Here is something of immediate value to you.
Yeah, the empathy part I think is really important too because I mean we do this for our scripts when we script content for our clients is the idea that the audience wants to understand that you have been through the problems that they're currently going through and that you
Yeah.
found a solution so that they understand, okay, this person not only went through what I went through, but they're also on the other side. They're like the aspirational version of who I am. So
Yeah.
I want to look into them a little bit more and see like what was that secret sauce that they like figured out that I don't know yet. And the only way
Right.
that they can really trust that that secret sauce is going to work for them is you go, well, I've been through exactly what you've been through, and I can speak the
Yeah.
language as though, I'm in your head, listening or reading your
Yeah.
journal or whatever. How can we best discover those points? Like from the empathetic standpoint, obviously, it's
Mhm.
I've been through what you've been through, but is there a way to like really do a practice ourselves to like jot down and understand specifically, put ourselves in our client's shoes, if you will, to understand
Yeah.
that those empathetic points?
So the first thing I recommend is actually talking to them, which I know is a real bummer because it's like, oh, I have to talk to an actual person, like gross. And I get it. I'm phenomenally introverted myself, but if you talk to 10 to 15 people, I guarantee you'll get whatever you need. But if you're not ready to do that yet, or if you don't know 10 to 15 people, what I tell people to do is to think about like, what do your people wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about? And I always pick on my lovely coaches here because they're so wonderful. But every coach has something like, I will help you become your most empowered self. And I'm like, dude, no one has woken up at 3 a.m. being like, if I could just become my most empowered self, everything would be so much better, you know? So you want to think about like, what do they actually think? They think, man, I don't know what's wrong, but I don't like my life anymore, or my job is not working. So if you can get down to those like very raw, specific feelings, that is what people respond to.
Yeah. And again, yeah, if you've been through it, then
Yeah,
what's the shit that you wake up in the morning going, oh, crap,
exactly.
whatever, right? Yeah, just use that
Yeah.
language. So what are some of the places that we can apply copywriting that would be like the most impactful for our personal brand immediately?
So the thing I always say first is the bio, right? Nobody likes writing their bios because it's kind of weird to talk about yourself. But it's the first thing people see, really, or it's the first thing they care about. They may see one of your posts and they're like, I don't know, this person looks kind of cool. Let me like check them out and see what they're about. And then they look at the bio and it's like 4 words about you and where you may have lived before, and it's like, okay, well that doesn't tell me anything. So I think the bio first, coming up with a very strong headline about who you are and what you care about. Again, ideally, if you can get to that 4 a.m. language or that very core like positioning hook, that's what you want to get to. Not like, I'm a blah blah who helps blah do blah, because we're all sort of bored with that now. So bio, and then I always look at website, which I know people are like, oh, websites are so mid 2000s. But that's still like the grown up part of your business. That's if people are going to buy something from you, they're not going to do it based on social media vibes. They want to at least see that you've paid Squarespace the $25 a month or whatever to get something up.
Yeah. And so you mentioned there a little bit about like personality still shining through in the content. How do we
Yeah.
thread that needle in terms of like being persuasive, and maybe you're not naturally like a very persuasive person through your tone, but
Yeah.
still coming across persuasive, but it's authentic and it still gets that personality in.
That's such a hard one. And I think part of it is a knack, right? You have to practice it and you have to see like what works for your audience, what works for you. Like what can you write that doesn't make you feel embarrassed, you know? Because I see sometimes people try to push themselves through sales copy and I'll have them read it back to me on the phone and you can see their face like, I hate that call to action. I would never say that in real life. So first of all, maybe the advice is like only do the things that you can actually comfortably say out of your face. But as far as like, what do I include? What do I not include? How do I sort of shift my tone to be persuasive? What I recommend is that you look at your relationship with your client and think about who you are to them in the context of that relationship. And that gives you sort of like the parameters for what you include. Because you can't, like, none of us can be boxed up. You know, our whole lives can be boxed up into a little brand friendly social media platform. So you have to have some kind of parameters, or else you get into like existential crisis land. Like, who am I? How do I describe myself? I don't know. So you think about that. You think about how you want to make them feel and the things that are really representative of you. So the thing that everybody goes to, right, is like their sports team. They like coffee or tea. You know, the stuff people put on dating profiles. And I'm like, you know what? If that is the core part of your personality, fantastic. But I'm sure there's something more interesting we could get to. So you want to look for those little quirky things that people, like your friends, would think, oh yeah, that's Dave. That's Dave all over. That's what you want to lead with. And then you want to think about how you would actually just make a clean ask. It doesn't have to be this like very persuasive, like, let me like manipulate you into believing my thing and buying it. It's like, no, like, here's my thing. Do you want it? Yes or no? And having that clear ask will do so much of the heavy lifting for persuasion.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept where sometimes if you don't even need to. I know sometimes marketing can feel a little bit like manipulative, as you say, or
Yeah.
you kind of edge the line of like truthfulness versus like embellishment and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. But sometimes like the truth is just the best motivator, you know, just like, hey, I helped this client achieve X and this is how I did it. And like that's good enough
Mhm.
for people to hear and they don't need like the bell and whistle language
Yeah.
around it. So yeah, sometimes truth is just the best salesperson, but other times, yeah, you need a little bit more help from our copywriter friend here.
Right.
So speaking of, so how do you utilize copywriting in your personal brand in order to kind of attract attention, attract clients, etc.?
So for the longest time, I actually tried to avoid having a personal brand because, as I said, phenomenally introverted, and I was like, just the strength of my writing should carry itself. Um, but then I realized that that's just not the case. And I started setting aside all the preconceptions I had about how I would have to use copywriting in specific ways for my personal brand. So it's like, oh, I have to have a long sales page and I have to like do the like I'm a blah who helps blah do blah thing. And I was like, you know what? Actually no. If I just want somebody to feel, if I'm going back to that question, right? What do they need to feel and how do they need to feel and what do they need to know? How can I use copywriting to talk about my brand? And I'm like, okay, well, how do I want them to feel? I want people to feel interested when they see me. I want them to feel like they've learned something because that's always satisfying. And I want them to feel curious to learn more. Okay, well, that's pretty easy to think about the things I can start to share about myself. And similarly, what do I want them to know? That I do writing and that they can hire me. It's pretty simple. So what I've done with that is actually ended up doing some very short sales copy, some very like tight web copy, and then just promoting myself really by showing up as me as I can with a really good headline. Because it's like once I've got the headline and they're in, and then they're like, talk to me about your book on Philip of Macedon that you've been reading. Sure, I don't know what's happening, but I'm already happy about it. So once I can get them in the door, then I can just kind of be my full weird self and let it roll.
Yeah. I saw you have a newsletter. So
I
that's
do.
kind of seems like that's one way you're getting out your message. What's kind of
hmm
your approach or strategy with the newsletter for your personal brand?
So I do a once a month newsletter where I kind of round up everything I've been talking about in other places. So it's like, hey, you could like listen to me on these podcasts this month. You can read me on these blogs this month, and then I share what's top of mind for me. As long as it's sort of businessy, like it's whatever I'm mulling over, whatever I'm seeing as far as trends. And then if I'm selling something, I'll be like, I saw this trend and I created this offer. If you want it, here you go. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, sure. maybe.
There we go. Apologies for that. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. It gave me an error to say to refresh the page, and
Hmm.
then and let me back into the mission after that. Um, so we'll just
Technology.
pick it right back up there. We were a couple minutes from wrapping up anyway, but
Yeah.
I'll record again, and then I think I was about to ask you about podcasting, so I'll just kind of run
Okay.
into that. We're already recording actually, so that's good.
Cool.
All right. And then obviously podcasting as well, going around and being on different podcasts that are associated with, I guess, marketing and copywriting and such. What's been
Mhm.
like your mindset or strategy behind that?
So the first thing that I look at with it is just forming relationships because you never know what might come out of something like that. My secondary thing that I look at is if we have some audience swaps we can do, if we've got overlaps in clients, basically anything that might eventually lead to somebody coming across me who wouldn't have seen me before and thinking like maybe I do want to work with her. And it's also just helpful to practice and try out new ideas and new phrases and new headlines and see what resonates and what doesn't.
Yeah, I love podcasting for that reason. There's
Yeah.
sometimes I'll ask a guest a question that they've never been asked before, and it
Yeah.
kind of throws them back a little bit, but at the same time, they're like, huh, I never really thought about that before. And then it informs their marketing some other way. So it's a good kind
Yeah.
of real-time sounding board. What are some of the, marketing strategies and things that maybe you want to sink your teeth into over the next, 6 to 12 months that you got your eye on?
So the thing that I think about all the time these days is what can I do with marketing that's really weird? I think so many people are really just so burned out on the standard like broadcast content that we're not really paying attention to it. The video bump is like, up and down, but it's really volatile. And so it's like, I don't really want to just go all into that. But I'm seeing people do these very quiet, just crazy creative things that stretch the bounds of what you would think you could do. So, for instance, a friend of mine, Ellie Trier, she's currently doing a sales campaign where it's like a combination murder mystery scavenger hunt delivered via email. And it's amazing. And like people, of course, are responding to it because like that's an email I want to answer. And I've got other people doing similar, just really creative things with LinkedIn posts and PDF downloads, which I think we all thought had died. And all of these really interesting ways of stretching the bounds of the medium to do something new. And so that's what I'm looking at. It's just like, how can I bring even more of my personal brand through and get very creative and break a bunch of rules and see what happens?
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Rachel, this was an awesome chat. Copywriting is critical for everyone listening, and I think there was a lot of great tactical things that we can take away today. If there was one piece of advice that you want to make sure the listener really just takes home today, what would that be?
Go fix your bio. It's probably not representing you the way that you want it to be.
True. Yeah, this is one of those do it once and then forget about it type of things, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And if people want to learn a little bit more about you and what you got going on, where can they find you?
You can find me at boltfromthebluecopywriting.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at hello@boltfromthebluecopywriting.com, and I will answer you.
Love it. Rachel, thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks, Dave.
Great. See you on the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. All right, and we're out. And then obviously podcasting as well, going around and being on different podcasts that are associated with, I guess, marketing and copywriting and such. What's been like your mindset or strategy behind that?
So the first thing that I look at with it is just forming relationships because you never know what might come out of something like that. My secondary thing that I look at is if we have some audience swaps we can do, if we've got overlaps in clients, basically anything that might eventually lead to somebody coming across me who wouldn't have seen me before and thinking like maybe I do want to work with her. And it's also just helpful to practice and try out new ideas and new phrases and new headlines and see what resonates and what doesn't.
Yeah, I love podcasting for that reason. There's
Yeah.
sometimes I'll ask a guest a question that they've never been asked before, and it
Yeah.
kind of throws them back a little bit, but at the same time, they're like, huh, I never really thought about that before. And then it informs their marketing some other way. So it's a good kind
Yeah.
of real-time sounding board. What are some of the, marketing strategies and things that maybe you want to sink your teeth into over the next, 6 to 12 months that you got your eye on?
So the thing that I think about all the time these days is what can I do with marketing that's really weird? I think so many people are really just so burned out on the standard like broadcast content that we're not really paying attention to it. The video bump is like, up and down, but it's really volatile. And so it's like, I don't really want to just go all into that. But I'm seeing people do these very quiet, just crazy creative things that stretch the bounds of what you would think you could do. So, for instance, a friend of mine, Ellie Trier, she's currently doing a sales campaign where it's like a combination murder mystery scavenger hunt delivered via email. And it's amazing. And like people, of course, are responding to it because like that's an email I want to answer. And I've got other people doing similar, just really creative things with LinkedIn posts and PDF downloads, which I think we all thought had died. And all of these really interesting ways of stretching the bounds of the medium to do something new. And so that's what I'm looking at. It's just like, how can I bring even more of my personal brand through and get very creative and break a bunch of rules and see what happens?
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Rachel, this was an awesome chat. Copywriting is critical for everyone listening, and I think there was a lot of great tactical things that we can take away today. If there was one piece of advice that you want to make sure the listener really just takes home today, what would that be?
Go fix your bio. It's probably not representing you the way that you want it to be.
True. Yeah, that's one of those do it once and then forget about it type of things, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And if people want to learn a little bit more about you and what you got going on, where can they find you?
You can find me at boltfromthebluecopywriting.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at hello@boltfromthebluecopywriting.com, and I will answer you.
Love it. Rachel, thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks, Dave.
Great. See you on the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint.